this is the final question in the case study as well as the final video I'm making for your home-based learning. So I hope you have been enjoying yourself so far and you've been learning a lot of economics together with me as I'm going through this entire case study question 2. So we are finally at the last question, which is discuss whether the Indian government's policy towards agriculture can be justified. So the 10-mark question. So again, if you look at the cause and effect, right? The cause is all the policy intervention the Indian government did towards agriculture. So the effect is it justified or is it unjustified? So this is where your TAS approach will come in, your thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So let's ask, what are the policies stated in the case study? You shouldn't be making up your own policies, of course. You must use the policies that is in the case study. So for this case, right, as I've said, extract 3 is about farm subsidies, while extract 2 is about minimum price. So the basic approach is this. You are to explain the benefits and costs of each of these policies, the farm subsidies as well as the minimum price. And finally, your conclusion, right, your synthesis should take a final stand on whether these policies are justified or not justified. Now, here's my tip on how to become analytical. Okay, in order to get the best marks, your writing, your answer should qualify for the analytical instead of just being cursory. So the common comment by Cambridge markers for case study, especially when it comes to the 10-mark question, is that they notice that many answers, right, the student is comfortable with just paraphrasing the extracts. They read the extract, they write in their own words, but there's very little economic analysis, little economic depth. As I said to you at the very first video, right, economics case study is not GP paper 2. You don't have to paraphrase the text, but you need to ensure that you have economic analysis. And the good thing about this particular question is that whether is it minimum price, whether is it production subsidy, both policies have diagrams you can draw. So I will strongly encourage students to draw them and make sure you explain the diagram as clearly as you can. Of course, you can get 10 upon 10 even without a single diagram. But from my experience, Cambridge markers love diagrams and they love well-explained diagrams. So this is the easiest way to get your answer into analytical instead of cursory, so you can get all the marks. Now, let's take a look at the production subsidies, the farm subsidies. When it comes to the justification, right, there are a few ways you can approach it. You can, of course, talk about the micro goals. So there are 2 micro goals, efficiency and equity. Okay, there are also 4 macro goals: economic growth, okay, full employment, price stability, and balance of payment equilibrium. So depending on which is better, depending on what the case study says, okay, you can tailor your points accordingly. So if you were to focus on micro benefits and costs, right, in the diagram, as I've used to explain for the 8-mark question previously, what a subsidy does is to lower the cost of production. So you shift the supply curve to the right. Now, when that happens, you realize that the price that consumers pay, right, for agriculture goods would tend to be cheaper for the consumers. Now, these are typically the poorer Indians. So in this case, this will increase their consumer surplus. So by subsidizing farm production, by subsidizing agriculture goods, you are benefiting consumers in terms of improving the equity. However, right, as we have taught you in year 1, when you subsidize a graph, there's a deadweight loss for overproduction. Okay, just like if you tax a good, right, there's a deadweight loss for underproduction. Subsidy is opposite. You subsidize the good, there's a deadweight loss for overproduction. So in your diagram, right, when you draw, okay, let me draw it here in case you are wondering what am I talking about. Okay, if this is the efficient output and this is the correct price, by subsidizing the good, right, do you notice? Okay, the production is increased, but there's a deadweight loss triangle. So Now, if I'm you, right, notice that extract 3 has a particular point about other crops being underproduced because of this subsidy. So if I want to be analytical, right, I'll use the point in extract 3, then I'll use the economic phrase, economic concept, competitive supply to explain this particular debit loss. I would say that, okay, because of the existence of subsidies towards certain agriculture goods, these farmers, right, they want to produce those particular agriculture goods in order to qualify for the subsidy. So that means they will devote more of the land, more of the remaining FOPs into producing those subsidized agriculture goods. But because of that, they end up producing less of other crops which are not being subsidized. Okay, because crops, no matter what, right, all crops use the limited FOP. So by producing more subsidized agriculture, I end up producing less of the crops that are not subsidized. So this is the concept of competitive supply. Now, what about the minimum price? Again, I'll use a diagram to show how a minimum price can help the farmers earn a higher income. Use the minimum price graph to show. So if I were to draw a graph here, okay, the simplest way to show is that, okay, with the minimum price, right? Now, in this case, as I've said, the government guarantees that they'll buy up all the unsold surplus because you draw your QS, sorry, QD, this QD and QS. There's a surplus stock here. Now, why would this help the farmers? Because the government promised to buy up all the unsold goods. Okay, as you read the extract, they are buying the unsold agriculture good to either export overseas or they purposely sell them to the low-income Indians at a lower price. So based on this, right, the farmers, they used to earn this area. Let me call this area A, this particular box, before minimum price. Okay, but after the minimum price, is it clear? Okay, they earn this particular entire shaded area. So it's more than just A, right? Okay, the particular P times Q, right, for the farmers have actually increased from area A, which is the box, to the entire shaded area. So this is how the farmers can earn higher income. So these are the main benefits. You want to help the farmers. What about the cost? Okay, the cost is this. The government have to buy up the entire surplus at the minimum price. So the cost to the government, right, if you show in the graph, is actually this big box here. Okay, this big box here. Now, there's a very high opportunity cost for this. Okay, and as we read the case study, right, there's some inefficiency because after the government buys up the surplus, they have to store them. And when you store them, right, when you don't store them properly, a lot of crops are going to spoil. Okay, and there's also a lot of corruption, okay, when it comes to the government managing this surplus stock. So there's some cost involved to efficiency that you can mention for this particular question. Now, if you have a lot of time, if you have enough time, I'll recommend you to at least talk a bit about macro goals. Okay, macro goals. So, but if you are running out of time, right, just focus on the micro benefits of efficiency, equity, and give a strong conclusion. But if you have time, because you can mention that such subsidies, right, help to lower the price of exports, so will allow them to sell some of these in the foreign market. So if based on that, right, when the price of exports, okay, is lower in terms of Indian currency, now the demand for exports from foreigners, which is in terms of foreign currency, will increase. This will increase the X and thus increase AD, and hence through the multiplier effect can lead to the benefits to the macro goals of India, actual growth and cyclical unemployment. However, the main cause here is this. This is the fits the definition of dumping because if you recall in your international econs, right, if the subsidies allow the farmers to sell the good at below cost, that is selling below marginal cost, which is the definition of dumping. So if you read the last sentence of extract 3, when other countries see India doing this, right, they might retaliate. So if they impose any tariffs on the same agriculture exports, your AD may not increase. So this is a possible benefit and cost from the macro point of view. So if you have time, I think it's good because of extract 3 last sentence. But what about the final stand? Okay, so here, right, our overall final stand is that it is not justified. Okay, why? Because now, if the main reason for India to engage in these two types of policies, production subsidies and minimum price, is to protect the agriculture industries, then clearly the cost of these policies outweigh the benefits. Okay, because now, when you subsidize the good, right, you are lowering the price, but it also benefits both the rich and the poor. Okay, and furthermore, as I said, there's a deadweight loss in the subsidy. There's also deadweight loss in minimum price. So, in a sense, there is a domestic misallocation of resources. You produce less of other crops so that you can produce more of the subsidized agriculture. And internationally, right, it's also an unfair trade practice. So if other countries see that you are purposely selling the price below the marginal cost thanks to your subsidies, they might retaliate, and it leads to a lot of distortion in resource allocation. So the easiest step to take is that it is not justified. However, if you want to make a point, you could say that if India instead of subsidizing the production of agricultural goods directly, how about subsidizing more of R&D? Okay, something like the Singapore Work Fair train the Indians to to develop agriculture using more effective farming method, then subsidies might be justified. But the overall stand you should take is that it is not justified. These two policies are just way too distortionary, both domestically as well as internationally. Okay, so I hope from this video and all the videos that we have seen so far, you have learned better how to tackle this particular case study question 2 in your tutorial book. I hope you have enjoyed yourself as I have. So this is Mr. Kelvin Tan signing off. Thank you.